Welcome to Whiskey Wise Guys. Bob, my dirty gym sock smelling companion of mine, and I are going to talk a little bit about rye and bourbon, the Whiskey Rebellion. If bourbon is the diplomat, honeyed, warm, and perhaps a bit too eager to please, then rye is the patriot with a flintlock and a grudge. It doesn't ask to be liked. It dares you to respect it, and that's for sure. Before America had Kentucky gentlemen and polished bourbon, it had rye, and plenty of it. Rye thrived where corn failed in the rocky soils, stubborn and hardy, even up in Maine, right? In short summers, long winters, it was robust, it was strong, and it didn't really care much for the aristocrats type. Then came 1791, and Hamilton, yes, that Hamilton decided to tax whiskey. A sin perhaps forgivable in finance, but not in spirit. The whiskey tax hit the producers hardest, for sure. They weren't well-heeled distillers in the powdered wigs. They weren't aristocrats with large bank accounts. They were frontier farmsmen. They fought for the freedom of this nation. People who didn't have banks, but damn well had barrels. The result? Well, the Whiskey Rebellion. And not a metaphor, a real insurrection for sure. Washington himself led 13,000 troops to suppress it. Imagine that, a sitting president marching on his own citizens, muskets in hand to enforce the liquor tax. And try scripting that today without triggering a constitutional crisis or a Netflix special. Which is especially ironic, considering that George Washington was distilling over cute neighbors, 11,000 gallons of rye whiskey per year at Mount Vernon. And yes, you heard me right. George Washington was knee deep in mash. Not for ceremony, not at all, but for commerce, for capital, right? He was the largest distiller in the fledgling republic. So anyway, that brings us to the bottle in your hand. Alrighty, this brings us to Pikesville Rye, 110 proof, robust, spicy, and aged 6 years for that kind of backbone that reminds you you're still alive. It's got a kick. But born in Maryland in the late 1800s, Pikesville was a titan of American rye era. Then came Prohibition, and the whole thing was nearly wiped from memory. But Pikesville survived, barely. Now resurrected in the hills of Kentucky, it's one of the last echoes of a bygone era that still bites back. And unlike bourbon, there's a lot of neighbors here. Unlike bourbon, soft and sweet and genteel, rye is angular, dry, aggressive. Bourbon seduces with vanilla and caramel. Rye slaps you back with a bit of pepper and orange peel, and that sort of dry smirk that comes from not giving a damn whether you like it or not. It's a porch sipper. It's a fireplace philosopher. That's for sure. And where bourbon was shaped by the sun and southern charm, rye was forged in the cold cellars of northern winters who couldn't afford to fail, right? It's a taste of grit, of calloused hands, of the American that existed before strategy and export labels. And remember, rye whiskey wasn't just money. It was currency. Farmers distilled their surplus rye into liquid gold because paper money was worthless back then. Barrels were wages, and rye, in many cases, was survival. That's for sure. So tonight, with a dram of what Washington distilled and Hamilton taxed, and what farmers once raised muskets to defend, rye isn't just a drink, it's a household historical document, bottled and aged. It doesn't just whisper freedom, it whispers anarchy, rebellion. And with Pikesville, which they aren't paying me a dime, that's for damn sure, you're holding a ghost. You're holding a pre-prohibition roots and a whisper of history and a page torn out of American rebellion.